Hey everyone, so today we are going to be recreating a painting I have already uploaded on my channel. I uploaded it just as a time lapse and I've gotten some requests on a full-length tutorial on how to recreate it, so today we are going to do that. I have already drawn out my sketch. All right, so let's dive in. I am going to be taking my round snap brush. I'm gonna load it up with water and I'm gonna fill up the sky. So this whole top section, we're just going to load up with water. And then I'm gonna go into my Payne's Gray and I'm just going to fill in this top section with that Payne's Gray paint. Now I'm going to have the top of the paint of the sky darker than the bottom of the sky. So you can just start with creating a nice even wash, and then you can go back into your Payne's Gray paint and you can just add a little bit more to that top section and just kind of blend that out. And you can work it down into the lighter section. I'm gonna add a little bit more paint to the top. Just like that. And then I'm going to rinse my brush off and I'm going to just get clean water on there. And I am just going to add a little bit of drops randomly in the sky. And this will kind of create the look of falling snow. You can just splatter some of that so you get different sizes. And then when this dries, it's going to create some nice blooms that give that appearance of snow. And it's a very fun, easy technique to do. And then you're going to want to let this section completely dry, and then we will move on to our next step. All right, now that our sky has completely dried, we can go in and we can start painting in our trees. So I'm going to grab my size 6 snap brush. And I'm going to fill that up with some black paint. And we are just going to start painting in our horizon line with trees. So I'm gonna start in the middle with a medium-sized tree. So right now I don't have a ton of black paint on my brush. It's more on the gray side. I went back and grabbed a little bit more black to add just to give it a little bit more color. And then having that gray behind it kind of just creates a little bit of depth. I'm going to create a smaller pine tree right next to it. I'm just using basic tapping motions. If you go to my basics, watercolor basics playlist, I go through how to create trees like this very simply, and just how it is great watercolor practice. So I will put a link in this video for you to click that if you want to head over there to get some of that basic watercolor practice if you want to practice these trees on a much smaller scale before diving into this full figure skater painting. I'm gonna add just another pine tree over here onto the side. Kind of tucked, a little peeking out of our perspective like that. It comes down a little bit farther than our horizon line. And then I'm going to get a little bit more water on my brush. Just feel like I'm running out of the fluidity of my paint. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add one last little pine tree in the farthest back of the foreground. So just add that there, and then I had placed little trees that had all the leaves had fallen off, and we're gonna put those right here. Right now I'm using a very gentle touch, like barely touching the paper with my brush. I have just very light pressure to create these really thin lines. And with trees, it's okay if it's a little jaggedy, if it's a little rough, because trees are not going to be perfect out in nature. So that kind of gives it more of a realistic look. So just kind of be fluid with it. Don't think about it too much. Just kind of create a thin line, whether it's perfectly straight or not. Just keeping it thin is really going to help those trees look normal. You go too thick, too fast, and they're just going to look wonky. And then create even thinner little lines kind of coming off of the branches. And then I'm just going to add another little tree right here. I'm going to get a little bit lighter paint on my brush so it's just not nearly as dark. And I'm just going to add in another little pine tree right here. Just, it feels a little dead. This isn't going to be identical to the painting that I did earlier just because I'm using a different size paper. So I need to fill it in just a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Let's see. Just add some, like there's roughness, like foliage behind these things. Just to give a little bit more fullness back there, like we're going into a forest. And then I'm going to grab some really dark black paint on my brush, tapping off any extra on my paper towel, and I'm going to create a large pine tree right here in the foreground. I'm just going to map out where I want my tree with a line to give me some guidance on how far I'm going down. And then again with this, you don't want to get too thick too fast. You don't want to make the tree super fat right up at the top. You're going to kind of just work your way down and just try to stay as thin as possible. It's so easy just to go crazy and add a ton of splotches everywhere. You can always go back and add more, but with watercolor, you can't take it away. At least it's very hard to. All right, so there is our tree in the foreground. And now we're gonna come to our frozen pond. We are going to get this whole area covered with water. I added a clip down here just to keep my paper from buckling. I was using a lot of water and it was really curling up on me and making it difficult. All right, so now we're going to go back to our Payne's Gray and we're going to use a really light consistency and we're just going to start dropping that in. I'm going to try to avoid my pencil line just so that I can erase it later. It's very harsh right now. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush and tap it and just get it nice and as dry as I can. I'm going to pull the paint away from my figure skater. And then I'm going to blend out right above her. And then I'm going to blend this down. I'm going to go back into my Payne's Gray and just create a little bit more of a shadow over here. That turned out really dark, so I'm just grabbing water to blend that out. Never be afraid to use a paper towel to just dab up any mistake like that. It's perfectly fine. Don't ever feel like you have to be perfect on your first go. And then I'm gonna go right underneath where her leg is to create like a shadow, and then another shadow underneath the foot that's touching the ground. Here, just gonna add a little bit more dimension, kind of come down here a bit and over here just to create, again, just the surface that she is on. Try to smooth out some rough spots. And then I'm just gonna drop in a little bit of blue. I know she's skating at dusk, so it's a little bit more on the darker side, but just feel like we needed a little hints of blue in there. And then I'm going to clean my brush off and get it slightly damp to just blend out this section a little bit. It just was looking really harsh. All right, and there we have the ice skating. While that is drying, I'm going to go in and get some just water on my brush. I'm going to come over here and just kind of work away at my dried trees to create some really light shadowing. If you can't really grab any paint, if it's really dry, and you just don't want to risk ruining anything, you can go back and grab some of that same colored paint and just tapping that in, just creating those little shadows. We haven't done our bunny yet that's over here, but we're just gonna go ahead and give him some shadows around our little sketch that we have placed here, just like that. Just paint in our little bunny. I'm grabbing one of my very small brushes. This is just a Chinese watercolor brush that I got off of Amazon. I love these brushes. They are so much fun to use. But I don't know the exact name, but it's just a very small rounded tip brush. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna grab a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm just gonna kind of make this light brown color for our little bunny over here. And then if you have that sketch already, just kind of map out loosely where that white tail is. This is going to be the bunny facing the opposite direction. And then you can just go ahead and paint in that little bunny. I'm going to add a little bit of darker paint right underneath the head, just to kind of show the shadow between the head and the body. I'm gonna blend that out. This is super tiny, at least in the scale that I'm doing it. You might be doing this on a larger paper, but it's very tiny, so you don't have to add a ton of detail. You're just kind of giving that impression that this little guy is over here. Just creating some interest to our painting and just having fun adding a cute little animal. All right, so there we go. I like that. So there's our little bunny. He's super tiny, so he should dry pretty quick. We're gonna now move on to our figure skater. I am going to take some yellow ochre and I'm gonna use that for her hair. Just following the guidelines that I had drawn earlier, just kind of like half of a semicircle and then a little circle on top for her bun. I didn't go crazy with her drawing, she's very basic. And then we are going to paint in her shirt while her hair dries. So just grab some purple. You can mix in a little bit of blue or a little bit of Payne's gray. And then again, this is a very easy step because if your drawing is already there, you're just filling in your drawing. This just kind of turns into a coloring sheet for you to play with. All right, and there we have her shirt. We're gonna let that dry. We're gonna go grab just some basic Payne's gray, and we're going to paint in her legs. Try to keep your top and bottom section from touching if they're wet. You can just create the smallest little line. Just try to keep it from touching so nothing bleeds, or you can just wait until everything does dry and then you don't have to worry about it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just fill in her ice skates while we're here. And then again, while all that dries, I'm going to go and I'm going to create my skin tone color, which is just a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow or ochre. Give her a little bit of a neck. Just give her a little profile. It's just kind of like a semicircle with a slight point to give an idea of where her nose is. And then just little dollops for the hands. And then I think she looks good. I'm going to add a little bit darker to her hair. I'm going to blend out that just a little bit because again, this is a very tiny painting. We don't need a ton of detail. Just a little bit more depth there was what I was going for. And then I'm gonna add some black to her skates down here. And then our last step is really fun and easy. You can either splatter white paint. Recently, I've been using my white gel pen, and just with the quickest motion, you just start tapping to get the snow falling. And that's all you do. And then if you also want, you can just use white acrylic paint, white gouache, and splatter it over your painting, which I also teach in my basic watercolor playlist. Again, I will link that playlist here for you to go check out those videos. And there you have an ice skating landscape. I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video, follow along. I hope to see you in other tutorials. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.